Yoy!
I'm not gonna worry about your level of concern.
Yoy and double yoy!
We talking about Twitter.
Triple yoy!
Think of how stupid the average person is, and then realize half of them are stupider than that.
Quadruple yoy!
You better be willing to do unique things in order to expect unique results. And that's just life.
We mock ourselves.
Live to tape from the green room of Flappers Comedy Club in Burbank, California. It's What Jin's Talking About, the conversation about the Steelers' social media conversation, exposing all your hot and toxic takes. I'm Kyle Kreis. Across from me is Greg Benevent.
Hello.
With a very special show for you today.
That's right.
It's not just the hot and takes. Instead, it's our annual tradition. It's the return of Steelers March Madness. Oh, the music is off. Turn the music up.
The power of the madness. Oh, yeah! Throw style points out the window.
A man needs a little madness.
I won't go schizo, will I?
Madness.
Madness. Guys, it's March. Oh, yeah!
Madness.
We're always trying to get 8 pounds in a 5-pound bag. It's madness. Oh, yeah! Guys, it's March. I saw what the madness was all about.
Fastest Terrier.
Oh, yeah!
That's right. The return of Steelers March Madness. In 2023, our first year, we did the 64 greatest moments in Steelers history. That was won by the Immaculate Reception.
Feels like a pretty odds-on favorite, but we had to go through the process.
60 to 40 was I think the final tally.
Okay.
Over the second big. What was it? Do I have it in my notes here?
I don't know.
I should, because this is important. It beat out. Can I page down on my notes? How about?
I mean, I would go on a limb and say Santonio's catching the back of the end zone.
Nah, Debo's interception.
Okay, I had the wrong half.
So 2023 is the greatest moment was Immaculate Reception beating Debo's INT in Super Bowl 43.
Okay.
Then in 2024 we did March Sadness, the 64 saddest moments in Steelers history, and that in a it was almost a split decision. Was Neal O'Donnell's second interception in Super Bowl 30 won it all.
Okay, I could see that. That's not a crazy vote at all. I mean, that's so personal. I mean, I would have gone Dennis Gibson, but I absolutely would have had that up there. Good.
Well,
that also shows the age of our listeners.
Shazier's injury was the second. Was the next runner-up.
That's a little more serious. But that also shows the age of our audience, I believe, that you had Super Bowl 30 so highly ranked.
So for 2025, we are taking it off the field for the 64. Am I getting emails? Give me a break. I'm laid off from a job. I can't be getting emails. This year, it's 64 greatest front office moves. We're taking it off the field. 64 greatest front office moves.
That's right.
Let's explain what this means. This includes trades, of course.
Yes.
This includes free agent signings. This includes contract extensions. What this does not include, this can include trading for draft picks, but I didn't just want to make it just like draft picks. It would just be all Hall of Famers.
Absolutely.
At that point,
and then frankly, that sounds like the start of 2026.
And I also didn't include coaching hires.
Yeah, I think that's because we don't know how much the front office is involved in that. So I think that those are all reasonable omissions, Kyle.
And I just, that it was hard enough ranking, is a Levi Wallace ranked higher than a Joe Hayden,
right,
whatever.
Things where there's absolutely no frame of reference for whatsoever, no easy comparison.
But despite all that, after scrolling through, well, I can't even say the Super Bowl era, because really free agency started in the 90s. So we take it back to the Noel era for some of these.
That is true.
Why don't we start it all off with the PEROGI bracket. The 1 seed, April 20th, 1996. Trading for running back Jerome Bettis.
That's going to be hard to beat. That's a franchise-changing moment in so many ways.
Could it be the winner overall, the overall winner? I mean,
it's not crazy. It was bold, and it paid off for literally decades.
you know, looking back, was it even that bold? They gave up. Well, Steelers went down from the 59th pick in the second round to the 72nd pick. They hardly gave up anything, you know, and got Jerome Bettis, you know, and I was trying to think, was there any other NFL transaction that's even relatively close to a guy in their prime? I don't know. Drew Brees wasn't even really in his prime when he switched teams.
And well, also too, the Rams had misevaluated Bettis, and everything we learned later was that Rich Kotite had given up on him as an impact player.
Yeah.
So they felt they were selling him for pennies on the dollar.
Just unreal. And I guess some of the talk back then was, well, he still has only a year left on his contract. We're going to have to re-sign him right away. Well, they did. They made him the highest paid Steeler at the time.
Oh,
at the time.
Yes, at a time when there was no salary cap, and that really, really meant something.
He could have gone to Houston, and he picked the Steelers, and that's going to be a theme throughout Steelers March Madness. Guess what? These players wanted to come to Pittsburgh.
That's right.
Not even with Tomlin. Anyway, the Jerome Bettis trade will go up against the 16 seed, April 4th, 2023, recently signing free agent safety Keanu Neal. You know, if you listen to the play-in special last week, this was one of the ones we kind of had to decide. This was one of the on the fences.
Yes, and Keanu Neal played all right when he was in there, and yes, that's the extent of what I can say about Keanu Neal.
Yeah, he played in 9 games, starting 8. It's like, how does this even make the list? You would think this would be one of the worst. I don't know. You know, he had the game-winning interception against Jordan Love and the Green Bay Packers to save that victory that season. So, you know, ultimately it was for naught. But without that win, then
they don't
it
make the playoffs. That's certainly valid. And also, too, we took this out to 64, to 68.
Yeah.
You kind of needed to get to. There's going to be some things like Keanu Neal in there.
Yeah, number 64. You got it. Okay, let's move on to the bottom of the bracket. We've got the 2 seed, April 29th, 2006, trading up in the draft to pick receiver Santonio Holmes. I'll remind you, we went from the 32nd spot. We gave up a 3rd round and a 4th round pick to the Giants to go move up to the 25th spot overall to get Santonio Holmes.
Yes, that was striking while the iron is hot. This team on the verge of winning another championship, competing for championships, put in to go get the team, the piece that they felt they needed, and they were right. They needed it, and that's what put them over the top. Santonio himself was the MVP of not just that Super Bowl, but very possibly that run to the Super Bowl. I don't think they beat the Chargers without him. He was
Ravens.
Fantastic the whole way. Yes, the Ravens, too. He was fantastic the whole way through that playoff run.
And, you know, Colbert had his eye on Holmes. This was someone they had their eye on the whole process.
Yeah.
Colbert says he started making calls at pick 20 for
I
him.
believe it. I totally believe it.
And didn't get any buyers until pick 25. And you're like, well, he only stayed around for one contract. Yeah, but,
but a lot happened in that contract. What an eventful contract.
Well, speaking of one contract guys, Santonio Holmes is going up against the 15th seed, March 13th, 2024, trading for cornerback Donte Jackson. This was the most skeptical. I would have said this would have been on the worst list if you'd have asked me back in March last year. But, and you were like, well, this was a letdown of a season, but Jackson had his best season as a pro.
Strong. Yeah.
5 interceptions. It's a 15 seed, so
Yes.
I don't expect it to advance far.
Right, and also we didn't see the full cancer of what Deontay Johnson could be in Pittsburgh as they did in other places. So I think that in and of itself maybe might have been addition by subtraction.
And okay, hindsight, sure, but now looking back, knowing that the season would crumble Would you take DJ for an extra weapon on offense?
I don't know. I wonder. I mean, it's easy to say, okay, man, everything, if George showing up late on Christmas or whatever gets much worse with DJ. But man, now I don't know. I mean, it's one thing to fail quietly versus to fail loudly, and I don't know which of those roads in the wood is more paved.
Yeah, they all hurt, right, Ben?
Everything hurts.
Yeah, everything hurts. Okay, let's go to the top of the bracket, too. The 3 seed. We're taking it back to 2015, October 3rd, mid-season. Steelers signed free agent kicker Chris Boswell. I'll set the table. It was week 4 when Josh Scobie missed 2 fourth quarter field goals in the overtime loss to the Ravens. So that sent him packing. He got the Doge special, and 2 days later was replaced with Chris Boswell. Since then, Boswell's only played in 150 games and has more 50-yard field goals than all other Steelers kickers combined.
Yeah, I mean, it's the greatest kicker of his era, one of the best ever, and they found him in a tryout. He'd gone to camp with the Giants or something like that. I may not even have the team right.
Yeah, that's right.
So that just shows how hard it is to get a job when there's only 32 positions on the planet.
Yeah, the greatest. You could argue greatest franchise kicker. It's either him or Gary Anderson, I guess. Points is Gary Anderson. Percentage, I think, is Boswell.
Maybe that's the next year's argument. Best at each position. Who knows?
Anyway, that could beat something like one of these higher seeds like Santonio Holmes, or I guess it would face the Bettis trade in the quarters. No.
No. I mean, it could. That very much well might. I mean, I can see it if you're, especially if you're of a certain age. I think a lot of these picks are, how you vote is going to be what you were around for. If you weren't in the parking lot of Three River Stadium at a Pirate game or whatever when they traded for Bettis, then yeah, it might hit you differently. Like I was, it might hit you differently when Boswell was signed.
Yeah, I remember the Bettis. I remember that Bettis signing because stuff like that never happened. Trading for that, especially for someone like that.
And I think that's what made it so shocking at the time.
I remember reading it in the paper back when we had newspapers. I was reading it in the Herald Standard, like wanted to get all the, before insiders existed. Really, we just had to read the. It was probably Wexel. I don't know who was writing for the Herald at that point. Okay. Oh, moving on. Okay, so the Chris Boswell in the 3 seed is facing number 14 seed. March 16th, 2024, trading for quarterback Justin Fields. Remember, that was a 6th round draft pick. This coming up year's draft pick. I mean, is this even worthy of the 64? I guess he started 6 games.
He started 6 games. He won games. He played better than he ever had in his career. I mean, if they sign him and let Russ go, this could be even dramatically much higher on this list. But in the years to come, and if they cut him, I think it stays very much. If they don't sign him, this goes right here at 14. But I think it's important because it's fine on here because Fields did win games. Moreover, it kind of stopped the emotional bleeding from Kenny having gone. I mean, Russ was. You didn't know exactly what you had in Russ. I mean, he certainly did all the right things that first week, but having Fields come in, then it was like, okay, deep breaths.
Yeah, as shocking as it was to you lose your starting quarterback, then it's like, oh, we've got Russ and Fields? Because before it was like, we're going to get Russ or we're going to get Fields, and then it was like, we got both? What?
Right, in like a span of like 4 days. Yes. So that's why I'm okay with it where it is. Yeah.
We're going to get to a few backup quarterbacks on this list, and I think that I'll make an argument that the greatest backup quarterback is yet to come. We'll get to that in a moment. Let's go back down to the bottom of the bracket. It's the 4 seed, May 30th, 2000. Signing free agent safety Brent Alexander. He played 6 seasons before he came to Pittsburgh with the Cardinals and the Panthers. Never missed a game in 6 seasons. So when Carolina released him in the 2000 offseason, Pittsburgh brought him on board, and he started the next 64 games. He's not a Ryan Clark. He's not a Polamalu. I guess back in that era, it would have been, Chad Scott and who was on
Lee Flowers.
Lee Flowers.
He was a very dependable player at a time when you could get away with, for lack of a better word, a slower safety. A guy that thought the game, that saw the game very well, maybe didn't have the most athletic gifts, but was absolutely a real contributor on some good defenses.
6 seasons. That's no That's going to be a recurring theme, too. It's like...
Absolutely.
Okay, so that 4 seed is going up against the 13 seed. Take it back to August 11th, 2011, when the Steelers signed free agent receiver Jericho Cotchery. He was underappreciated in New York, and Pittsburgh was the perfect opportunity in 2011 because Randall L. had left for the second time. Hines Ward was 35. Antonio Brown was not yet Mr. Big Chest.
Right.
So Cotchery comes into Pittsburgh thinking he might have a chance, maybe to be the number 2 even.
Yes.
I guess Hines Ward's 35. Well, who knows? He came in, the sky's the limit. He never really got past 4th or 5th on the depth chart. His big season was in 2013 when he had 6 starts, 10 touchdowns, 600 yards.
Yes, and those numbers sound shocking today. But, Cotchery was a real contributor on those teams, and moreover, he was a leader on, as Cal mentioned, wide receiver room that had some much younger guys in it. We think, if you ever think about the Tim Tebow game and all that, well, they're not in overtime if Cotchery doesn't make some plays. He played very well in that game, and many others. Cotchery he wasn't around for a long time, but the Steelers, who've had a checkered history sometimes with free agent wide receivers, that's one that they certainly got contributions from.
Yeah, it was 3 seasons, 43 games. I think Ben said he was the most underrated maybe receiver he played with.
I can totally believe that. I can absolutely believe that.
Okay, let's move on back to the top of the bracket. We're at the 5 seed that has fallen to the floor. The 5 seed. Let's go to April 5th, 1993, when Steelers signed free agent quarterback Mike Tomczak. O'Donnell was the starter. Bubby was out. They needed a new backup. And Tomczak saw Pittsburgh as the best chance for playing time,
And he was right.
Yeah, he stayed 7 seasons. 7 seasons, including starting almost the entire 96 season, which included 2 playoff games. So, 7 seasons. Is he the greatest backup quarterback?
It's hard. Charlie Batch has so much going for him, but also there's big wins. But Tomczak absolutely has to be in that conversation of best backup for the Steelers.
He started more games than Batch.
I totally believe that. I 100% believe that because there's no season where they're like, all right, Batch is running this team. But this also gets back to what we said a week ago, where they're like, oh, they spent the 21 years between Bradshaw and Ben looking for the quarterback. No, they didn't. They had an entire season where they're like, this is fine. Tomczak's going to play into the playoffs. He's going to take this team into the playoffs, and we expect to win in the AFC in the 90s with Mike Tomczak, and they did.
Won a playoff game with Mike Tomczak, so, and, had a good Yinzer last name. I just remember that era where I don't know if it was reality, if it was like the Guy and Stan call-ins, or if it was like a DVE sketch making fun of the call-ins where everyone would just get his name wrong, like, oh, Mark Tomczak, or no one would call him Mike.
That sounds perfect.
That seemed to be my recollection of the Tomczak era. Didn't get any of the hate Cordell had. I don't know if the two.
No, something about
that.
Yeah,
what was that? One was named Tomczak. But maybe the greatest. 7 seasons. We'll get to Batch.
Good.
7 seasons and a playoff win. Batch doesn't have a playoff win for the Steelers.
That's true.
So I don't know. Maybe is that a hot take? Mike Tomczak, greatest backup Steeler quarterback since Justin Fields. I don't. Okay. Anyway, moving on. Tomczak in the 5 seed is facing the 12 seed, March 20th, 2020, trading for Chris Wormley. This was the 2021 5th-round draft pick in exchange for Chris Wormley in division. This only happened once before Steelers-Ravens trade. And I believe that Tomlin made that his motivation for him, I think, for the rest of his time.
Yes, absolutely. That came up multiple times. And Wormley was a dependable backup who was a spot starter, if I remember correctly.
Played in 41 games and started 14 in 2021. However, that was infamous for being the Steelers' worst rushing defense. So, is this one of the 64 best? Maybe. Okay, we're already going longer than I wanted.
Yes, we are.
Let's go to the 6 seed. October 20th, 2004, signing free agent safety Tyrone Carter. He was the number 3 safety behind Polamalu and Ryan Clark, but But he played
a lot.
89 games.
Yeah.
Started 22 of them. He was AFC Defensive Player of the Week in Week 17 of 2008 and Week 9 of 2009. He also has 2 Super Bowl rings.
Yes, he was on all the Super Bowl teams. He was a genuine contributor. He was one of those guys, you may not have known his name, or there weren't a lot of folks with his jersey, but he certainly played a lot of snaps for some great teams.
I thought he might have been seeded. I was like, oh, that's suspiciously high, a 6 seed. But I don't know, 2-time Player of the Week, AFC Defensive Player of the Week.
A guy that was a contributor. I imagine he played some teams too for those on special teams. For those
definitely,
teams.
definitely.
So that's absolutely a guy who earned those rings.
That's how he earned his way. He was, in 2004, he was strictly special teams, and then earned his way. All right, that's going up against the 11 seed, March 16th, 2024, signing free agent quarterback Russell Wilson. I guess it's kind of like Fields, I guess, to be really determined.
Well, yes and no. I'm fine with Russell. Absolutely should be on this list. I think he's why they made the playoffs last season. I think his play in the middle of the season, that team was going down, was not playing well at like it had in the first month with Justin, and then Russell came in and took them to a higher level, and we saw what a different kind of offense could be, and then it tailed off at the end.
And for the salary, that had to be one of the greatest. I know that wasn't necessarily our great, minds at work there, but for that, that you can't beat that.
Absolutely.
Let's go back up to the top of the bracket for the 7 seed. We're going back to June 2nd, 1997, when the Steelers signed free agent receiver Courtney Hawkins. Now, this is a crazy situation. Okay, now the young fans don't know who this is, and I think this is going to lose to the 10 seed.
Sure.
But, he came in. Imagine this scenario. He was the Bucs' leading receiver when he hit free agency. Now, he chose Pittsburgh because the wide receivers coach used to be in Tampa Bay. So, connections like that. But he knew coming in he was going to be behind Yancey Thigpen and Charles Johnson.
Right.
So going from the leading receiver in Tampa to already knowing he's going to be the number 3. Now, Chan Gailey is in town. He's using 4 and 5 receiver sets.
Very new in Pittsburgh at the time.
Yeah, so, Hawkins ended up playing in 54 games, including 98 when he had 750 yards on 66 receptions.
Which was a lot, particularly given that team. Hawkins was a very solid receiver and an excellent pickup by the team.
Yeah, a number 3 receiver with 700 yards. I mean, don't forget his name. Don't forget him. Courtney Hawkins up against the 10 seed. Number 10. Let's go to November 30th, 2021, when the Steelers signed defensive tackle Montravius Adams from the New Orleans practice squad.
Yes.
You'll remember that the Steelers' defense was just in free fall.
It was bad. And
to I don't want to say he saved the season, but
he certainly, you can argue he did.
Yeah, bringing him on, and it turned around a little bit. We weren't.
It was triage.
Yeah,
it was a tourniquet. He really was.
So to imagine that we got him from someone's practice squad is pretty remarkable. Now he's played in 46 games now in 4 seasons.
I've been a dependable backup and spot starter since.
I bet people are going to vote Mo Adams over Courtney Hawkins
because he's currently on the team and he's someone they remember. But yes, that is a genuinely good matchup there. That's one you could really debate back and forth.
Let's go to the bottom of the bracket. The final bracket in Pierogi quadrant is the 8 seed. March 17th, 2022, signing free agent guard James Daniels. Steelers were kind of shocked when they lost David DeCastro.
Yes.
And then the Trey Turner experiment didn't really work out.
No.
So Daniels was like the top guard on the market, or one of the top guards.
Absolutely. Young guy, still very young. He came out early, and that's why he was in Chicago. What a great deal he was for the Steelers. I mean, this is a higher pick if he hadn't had the season-ending injury this season. He was really starting to come into his own for the Steelers and make good on all of that.
And James is taking on the 9 seed from March 8th, 2008. Steelers signed free agent running back Mewelde Moore. Okay, so Mewelde Moore chose Pittsburgh in 2008 because he had already worked with Mike Tomlin in Minnesota. Or, tangentially or whatever. So Steelers already had Willie Parker and Rashard Mendenhall, but we needed more. He started 4 games during that Super Bowl season in 2008.
Yes, and he's the very definition of a safety valve. There were many times that I could think of off the top of my head. I don't have the specific plays, but I remember the moments where Ben went to him for big third down conversions. Well, Moore was everything that a third down back should absolutely be.
Okay, that is the Pierogi bracket. Go to BehindTheSteelCurtain.com and make your choices heard. Let's move on to our second quadrant, the Halupki bracket.
Okay.
At the top of the seeding, number 1, April 26th, 2003, trading up to draft safety Troy Polamalu. We gave Kansas City the 27th overall pick, a 3rd-round pick, and a 6th-round pick for the 16th overall, and never regretted it for a moment.
Yeah, a big price for a big payoff. Troy's rookie season is rougher than people remember, and then after that, he absolutely figured it out. He was hurt in Super Bowls, but other than that, that's like literally the worst thing you can say about his career. One of the greatest safeties in the history of the game, which is what they were hoping for when they drafted him, and wow, it actually happened.
Yeah, that was supposed to be Devin Bush.
Yes.
That was supposed to be, who else are we trading up for? I guess you could say now Broderick Jones.
Not as far as they traded for those two, but yes, absolutely. That trading up in Pittsburgh has quite so much does with the Steelers, but that has some real heritage attached to it.
What's pretty crazy is that the Steelers had a verbal agreement with Dexter Jackson, the reigning Super Bowl MVP.
I remember.
And he ended up signing with Arizona. So that could have been, Houston Oiler Polamalu or whatever. I guess that wouldn't have been Houston, but okay. Troy is going up against the 16th seed, taking us back to April 27th, 2018, trading up to draft quarterback Mason Rudolph.
Absolutely. He didn't become Ben's successor, but he definitely saved the season in that December, which I'll never forget. They don't make the playoffs without him.
Spent 4 seasons in Pittsburgh, played in 21 games, started 13.
Yeah, the best quarterback Mike Tomlin's ever developed.
I think that's facts. I think.
Yeah.
All right, to the bottom of the bracket, the 2 seed, February 14th, Valentine's Day 2000, signed free agent nose tackle Kimo von Oelhoffen. This was Kevin Colbert's first free agent signing as Steelers general manager. He spent 6 years in Cincinnati, and as a nose tackle, Steelers converted him pretty much to defensive end, where he started 94 games, including Super Bowl 40.
It seemed like a minor thing at the time. It absolutely was not. He was a leader on that team almost from day one, and as much a driving force as anyone else on that Super Bowl 40 team.
And, a hidden play that I guess it does get talked about, but of course he chemoed Carson Palmer. Right?
Absolutely, and he was the one that told the reporters off the record after they got blown out at the Colts, he guaranteed a win if they ever played there in the playoffs, and they did.
Wow.
The Ben tackle game. That didn't come out for a long time later, that in the locker room that night he had.
I don't even understand where that's coming from.
Well, it's coming from history, Coach. Kimo is taking on the 15th seed, March 9th, 2004. Steelers signed free agent running back Deuce Staley.
Injuries derailed this one.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very different if he doesn't tear his ACL or whatever happened in the Patriots game, the one where Ben really becomes Ben's rookie year. I mean, Deuce might be thought of very differently in Steelers history if not for that.
He started 10 games in 2004. That's
Well, but also in him playing, it was really bringing that offense back. He was a major part of contributing to Ben's early success. Was that he was running the ball and the bus was getting into the end zone. So that's he was a big contributor in the early days. And again, another one derailed by injury.
Let's go to the top of the bracket. It's the 3 seed, February 25th, 1998. Steelers signed free agent cornerback Dwayne Washington, another one of the safeties from this era that, along with Brent Alexander, maybe. But, Washington was coming off his best season in Minnesota. Denver offered him more money, but he wanted to play with Darren Perry and Carnell Lake. A recurring theme. So he ultimately started 92 games in Pittsburgh, plus 4 playoff games, including the 2001 AFC Championship against New England.
Yeah, this is an era when the Steelers weren't necessarily getting big-ticket free agents, but this is one that they brought in who maybe didn't necessarily live up to what they expected him to do, but did play very well for a time.
Let's keep it in the secondary for the 14th seed. In May 3rd, 2022, the Steelers signed free agent defensive back Donte KZ. Is this even this is higher on the seeding than Keanu Neal, but is there much different? I guess
He played more games.
He's played 38 games.
He played more games, and they also did develop packages around KZ that didn't necessarily work out. But KZ was as good a third safety as I think any team in the league had.
Let's go down to the 4th seed, the bottom of the bracket. It's April 21st, 2001. The Steelers trade up for linebacker Kendrell Bell. Steelers gave a 2nd-round pick and a 4th-round pick to the Patriots to move up in the 2nd round from pick 50 to pick 39.
Still the Steelers' last defensive rookie of the year at another career derailed by injuries. I mean, he could have been truly great, perhaps, if not for that. That game where the big comeback against the Browns in the playoffs, that's almost entirely Kendrell Bell on defense. Just an incredible performance.
Yeah, remember, he was replacing Levon Kirkland, who left, and it was like, well, how do you replace that? Well, he went all-pro his rookie season.
And deservedly so.
And Kendrell Bell is going up against the 13th seed. Let's take it back to 1994 when the Steelers signed free agent fullback, maybe the only fullback on the list, John L. Williams. Believe it or not, the Steelers offered the contract first to Moose Johnston.
I believe it.
3 years, $3.75 million, and he turned it down. What? Can you imagine that if Moose played?
I mean, that would have been something. I mean, Moose had a great career and was a very good player. But yeah, that would have. I mean, he would have been a fan favorite too, just as John L. Williams was.
Yeah, he was initially a fullback for Barry Foster, but he played. Did he play with the bus?
I don't remember specifically. I think Tim Lester was the bus driver.
No, I think just 2 seasons. I think you're right. I think just 2 seasons for John.
But John L. Williams was a good option out of the backfield for throwing the ball as well. He had excellent hands.
He signed with Pittsburgh because he wanted a place that had direct flights to Florida, where his family lived. All right, let's go back up to the top of the bracket. We've got the 5 seed, June 12th, 2001. Steelers sign free agent quarterback Tommy Maddox. The only, maybe one of 2 success stories from the XFL. He replaced Cordell as the starter. That was the end of the Cordell era. And everyone remembers the playoff win against the Browns.
Absolutely, and he showed an entirely different kind of offense than we'd ever seen at the time, one that was passing-based. Cowher fell in love with it, and that's a big part of the reason they went 6-10. But Maddox, absolutely, they don't go to the playoffs, and they don't win that game without him.
This is another sneak. I think this one could go far. I think Maddox and Tom Zach could both go a little further in their brackets.
I think that's true.
Maybe they'll make it to the Sweet 16. I'm predicting Sweet 16 for both Maddox and Mark Tomazak. Tommy Gun Maddox is going up against the 12th seed, April 24th, 2010. The Steelers trade for cornerback Bryant McFadden and a 6th-round pick who would become Antonio Brown. This is one of those, I try not to do too many where a trade of a future pick, something that is not yet to be determined. It's hard to say what a great front office move. They traded for a pick that we didn't know was going to be Antonio Brown. Yet you still have to kind of consider that. Without that pick, there would be no AB.
Absolutely, yes. And McFadden did help solidify that secondary at the time. So that was an excellent move.
This was his 2nd run in Pittsburgh and started all 16 games. This is the 2010 run, Super Bowl 45, right?
Yeah, because he'd left to go to Arizona and then come back.
All right, let's take it up to the 6th seed, March 21st, 2017. Steelers sign free agent defensive tackle Tyson Alualu. He wasn't expected to sign in Pittsburgh. He was only making the visit because his agent told him to. Then he met John Mitchell, Kevin Colbert, and surprise, Mike Tomlin, and signed on the dotted line. He called it the best decision of his life. Spent 6 years in Pittsburgh, played in 81 games.
Absolutely. It was meant to be a backup, and then absolutely became a starter. A high draft pick that never panned out with Jacksonville. Became a genuine contributor on some very good defenses in Pittsburgh.
And adding to his lore, didn't he sign again with Jacksonville only to renege and come back?
Yes, exactly. That was a man who loved it.
He loved Tomlin. Tyson Alalalu was going up against the 11 seed. March 16th, 2024. Steelers signing free agent linebacker Patrick Queen, the largest money deal in Steelers free agency.
Yeah, I mean, it showed just how serious Con was about making improvements to this team. I mean, Queen hasn't been the best linebacker and the inside linebacker in the league yet, but he absolutely got better throughout the season after a little bit of a rough start, maybe, and looks to be a real leader on this team moving forward.
Is it too late to compare? You know, we've had some a lot of free agent middle linebackers recently. Miles Jack, Joe Schobert. After one season, can we say that Queen is better than those yet?
I think so.
Okay.
I mean, in fact, he's still going to be here, right? I think that's a big start right there.
Better still be here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Let's go to the 7 seed. June 23rd, 2022. Steelers sign free agent defensive tackle Larry Ogunjobi. You know, he already had a $40 million deal with the Bears, but he didn't pass his physical. So somehow he came to Pittsburgh for 1 year, $8 million. But it helped because we had just lost Stephon Tuitt.
That was just it. He was triaged for Tuitt. There's no way to make up for Tuitt, but he was the absolute best decision they could have made at the time in an emergency. And he hasn't always been great. He's always been there and been more dependable than you might think.
Is this too high of a seeding for him? 7?
I mean, maybe, but it's again, a lot of these you have to look at them in the context of when they happened, and when Tuitt retired, it was hard to believe that there was somebody with his resume just out on the market.
Well, it's going up against the 10 seed, March 14th, 2019. Steelers sign free agent cornerback Steven Nelson. This was a big deal. 3 years, $25 million.
Mm-hmm.
Artie Burns was not a success.
No.
So this is one of the biggest free agent contracts in team history. This is up there. 2 seasons. And those 2 seasons, Steelers finished 3rd in pass defense each time.
Yes, he was a lot better the first season than the second, and this was not one of those players that will tell you nice things about Pittsburgh afterwards. He was not happy.
No, he became a hostage, right?
Yes, he went.
One of the few.
But that first season was really strong and a really great season as a cornerback, and that's why he deserves to be on this list.
One of the few to transition from volunteer to hostage. All right, the final matchup in this bracket, the 8 seed, March 23rd, 2001. Steelers sign free agent safety Mike Logan. Some of you were like, huh? But
super contributor.
Yeah, he was coming off his best season as a pro, and his dream was to play for the hometown boys, Pittsburgh Steelers. Right. They even let him wear Donnie Shell's number 31, the only player since Donnie Shell to wear 31.
And deservedly so. I mean, he's the one that makes the big interception against Kelly Holcomb and the Browns in that playoffs game. Mike Logan was a crucial part of those teams. I think he still does media in the area, or did for a while. No. That was an excellent decision bringing in Mike Logan. He was a bit player in Jacksonville and a big contributor for Pittsburgh.
73 games in 6 seasons. So... And it's going up against the 9 seed, March 24th, 2014. Steelers signed free agent linebacker Arthur Moats. This is, it was a kind of a period in transition. Lamar Woodley had left. Harrison was older. But they got Moats for the league minimum, and he ended up playing 62 games over 4 seasons.
And he such position flexibility. One of the few that can play inside and outside, and did both professionally.
I don't think he has a chance. I don't know. This will be interesting if the recency bias of Moats, because I don't think Moats should have a chance against Mike Logan. But
right, but people also could see Moats even more in the media than you can with Logan.
All right, that's 2 quadrants down. We should take a quick breather, and then we'll come back with the final 2 brackets in Steelers March Madness, the 64 greatest front office moments in Steelers history.
Raise your brand, you got it. Raise your brand, you want it. You got confident, secure.
Feeling confident? Raise your brand. Got $150 million? Raise your brand. Need AI solutions to carbon-based insurance problems? Raise your brand and reach for Acrisure.
Confidence, tried and secure. Raise your brand, Acrisure. Raise your brand, Acrisure.
All right, it is the second half of Steelers March Madness. We're counting down the 64 greatest front office moves in Steelers history. Woo. Let's get to the third bracket. It is the Chip Tam bracket. The 1 seed. April 5th, 2002. Steelers signed free agent linebacker James Ferrier. Enough said there, right?
The
easy
best
1 seed.
free agent signing in Pittsburgh Steelers history. Maybe in Pittsburgh sports history.
Okay. Do you think this could win it all?
I think this could win it. I think if we stretch it out to include Penguin signings and Pirates signings, I think this might be the best free agent signing in the history of the city.
It's taking on the 16 seed, July 28th, 2012. Antonio Brown gets a 5-year, $42.5 million extension. The Young Money gang, couldn't hang around forever. They had one contract to give. They offered it to Mike Wallace. He said no, and then they gave it to AB, and then that would kind of that didn't technically start the Killer Bees era, but pretty much
it's what paved the road for it. I mean, it's easy to say that looking back, and that they should have given it to AB, but it was not easy to make that decision at the time, and they absolutely did the right thing, even despite how it all ended up getting the best receiver in the league and one of the best in all time in that run for that contract.
Let's go to the bottom of the bracket. The 2 seed, March 8th, 2001. Steelers signed free agent center Jeff Hardings. This was a 6-year, $24 million deal. Hardings had history with Colbert because he was in Detroit when they drafted Hardings. He went on to make 2 Pro Bowls and 1 All-Pro.
Absolutely. I mean, the forgotten link in the chain of all-time great Steelers centers. He's not a Hall of Famer, but wow, that team isn't nearly as good without him, and what an important contributor to this team's championships.
Hardings is taking on the 15 seed. We're going to March 17th, 2022, when the Steelers signed free agent cornerback Levi Wallace. Joe Hayden was out. Levi Wallace was in. He played in 31 games in 2 seasons.
Absolutely, and it's easy to look at the worst of Levi Wallace and think he doesn't belong here, but no, he played some good games and was a big reason they won. He had those 2 interceptions against Vegas. When Wallace was on, he was on, and when he wasn't, he was a liability, but he had a higher ceiling than I think a lot of people remember.
After the Hayden era, it's been like the Achille Witherspoon, Levi Wallace. If they don't sign Donte Jackson, it's just been this revolving door.
As it's been from the other side since Rob Woodson.
Yeah. Or Brent Alexander or Dwayne Washington. What were we talking about earlier? Okay. Let's go to the 3 seed, August 30th, 2017. Steelers signed free agent cornerback Joe Hayden. 3-year, $27 million deal. He was a Pro Bowler in Cleveland, and they released him to because they said he was the worst-looking defensive back in camp. And I think it was like the news had broke, and the Steelers were already on the phone.
Yes. Oh, yeah, absolutely. As soon as somebody heard, this was one of the great just get right on it signings. What a smart decision. It still feels shocking all this years later that they got Joe Hayden, who was at the time practically the face of the Browns franchise.
He played 68 games, so he's going up against the 14 seed, someone who played 72 games. We're going back to 2014 when the Steelers signed free agent receiver Darius Hayward-Bay. Top 10 overall pick, I believe, at one point for the Raiders.
Entirely because of Al Davis.
Yeah, he was due to make $10 million, and the Raiders were like, "Nah, we're going to cut you." And we signed him as a receiver, but he really transitioned into one of the core special teamers.
Absolutely, the leader of the special teams at the team absolutely loved him. A real leader of men, a guy that could tell people. I hope he gets into coaching. They said the most wonderful things about him, and such a great story of, hey, maybe you flame out in the draft, you're not who they thought you were, but wow, you play well somewhere.
And 72 games. Okay, let's move on to the bottom of the bracket. We've got the 4 seed, August 20th, 1970, a Knoll era, when the Steelers traded for the pick that became defensive end Dwight White. This is kind of crazy because the Steelers traded Roy Jefferson, who was their only star in 1970, star receiver. But he was a vocal critic of Chuck Knoll at a time when you could not necessarily shut up and dribble,
Yeah, there wasn't a lot of Twitter in 1970.
So you can imagine trading the team's only star was controversial, but that didn't last too long because that pick turned into Hall of Honor defensive end Dwight White.
Absolutely. What an incredible move, and just really a show of just, hey, things are going to be different from in here from now on.
Dwight White is going up against the 13 seed. Let's go back to April 16th, 2007, when the Steelers signed free agent defensive tackle Nick Eason. The starters on the defensive line were already well-trenched, but he still spent 4 years with the team, played all over the line, appeared in 55 games.
Absolutely, a real contributor. I mean, so many of these guys have been backups, but there have been backups that they needed to win. And Nick Eason had a great career as a player and an even better career as a coach. The guy's really going up the ranks.
Yeah, he didn't make the ESPN cover, but he deserved a spot there, right?
That's right.
Okay, let's go to the 5 seed, March 12th, 2014. Steelers signed free agent safety Mike Mitchell. This was a big contract at the time, 5 years, $25 million. Ryan Clark left for Washington, and Mitchell was coming off his best season as a pro, the league's second best defense in Carolina. He ended up starting 61 games for the Steelers over 4 seasons, and he was as vicious of a hitter as Ryan Clark.
You beat me to it. Yes, he absolutely maintained that same level of violence. He was a real intimidator back there, and a wonderful quote. And yes, one of these players that had the Steelers won a championship or something, that would be thought of even more favorably in Pittsburgh history.
It's taking on the 12 seed. Let's go to March 13th, 2019, when the Steelers traded away receiver Antonio Brown. You'll remember they got a 3rd-round pick from the Raiders and a 5th-round pick, which turned into Donte Johnson and Zach Gentry.
Absolutely. What a great trade that was. You got rid of the team's biggest problem and got an actual replacement as well as a serviceable part, and didn't have to eat a lot of money to do it. This is the very epitome of what a good front office move is.
Yeah, and because remember, AB nixed the trade to the Browns. It was like, we got to trade to Buffalo, and it was like, oh, great, that's going to be a great pick or something, and then he nixed that.
He wanted no part of that.
But imagine if AB have stuck around to play with.
No, he would have always gone with Brady. I mean, he was always going to end up there eventually.
And Steelers turned it into Donte Johnson, another top 10 all-time Steelers receiver. So, if you're going to trade away the franchise's best receiver, may as well get another top 10.
Absolutely.
All right, let's move on to the 6th seed. March 2nd, 1996. Steelers signed free agent offensive guard Will Warford. This was a 4-year, $10 million deal. He was already the highest paid lineman in the NFL and had just come off a Pro Bowl season in Indianapolis. But Pittsburgh told him if he was going to play for us, he had to move from tackle to guard and therefore take guard money, which he did. So what does that tell you about him wanting to play in Pittsburgh?
The man very much wanted to be there. And also, if Kyle and I do this 10 years from now, there's going to be a lot more of these, that the Steelers signed some offensive linemen who ended up doing well. Under this new regime, there's going to be so much more of this exact thing.
I will give Rooney credit. When they needed to move him to tackle in his final season in Pittsburgh, so they did pay him tackle money, and it cost the Steelers a draft pick because it was a cap violation.
They do business the right way. I mean, they really do.
Will Warford is going up against the 11th seed, another quarterback from June 17th, 2002. The Steelers signed free agent Charlie Batch. Detroit had just drafted Joey Harrington, if that name rings any bells. Batch got a bunch of offers, but of course he wanted the hometown deal in Pittsburgh. Stayed for 11 years. Played in 33 games, only started 9 in 11 years.
Yeah, well, that shows, again, what happens when you're behind an all-time great. But Charlie was, for all the backup quarterbacks the Steelers had, Charlie was the one that perhaps it was provincialism. So you could feel comfortable was in there. They maybe weren't going to run the whole offense, but, man, Charlie was not going to be the one to blow this game. He was not going to throw interceptions to Rashard Davis or whoever else the Jaguars had. You knew Charlie was going to play the smart ball control game and give them a chance to win at the end, and that's all you can ever ask of a backup quarterback.
Are you willing to go on the limb that I'm out there saying that is he better than Tom Zach or not?
I mean, in terms of talent, probably more talented, but I don't know. Tom Zach has a ring, I think, with the 85 Bears. I mean, Tom Zach won a playoff game. I mean, Batch never got that chance to win, but boy, Tom Zach also wasn't there behind an all-time great.
Yeah, well, unless you count Cordell an all-time great.
Which he could have been in a different era.
Or Jim Miller. Great voter. Didn't vote for Lamar Jackson, right? Okay. Okay, let's go to the top of the bracket. We're at the 7th seed. March 21st, 1994. Steelers signed free agent defensive end Ray Seals. This is a name that I didn't even know. He was replacing Donald Evans in the starting lineup.
I mean, I can hear Myron yelling that very vaguely, Donald Evans. But no, if you're someone like me that has a 60-Minute Men shirt somewhere in your mother's basement, that you remember Ray Seals. The piece that tied that defense together. I mean, Ray Seals made them that much more vicious, particularly on the defensive line. A very underrated pickup in Steeler history.
And a sack in Super Bowl 30 against Troy Aikman.
I totally believe that.
Ray Seals is going up against the 10 seed. It's March 13th, 2015, when the Steelers signed free agent running back D'Angelo Williams. Lev Bell was facing a 4-game suspension to start the season, so they needed a starting caliber running back.
And even beyond that, what a great change of pace for when Bell came back. D'Angelo is what they should be signing now. A guy that's 30 years old that doesn't have that much tread on his tires. D'Angelo was like the perfect free agent signing running back.
Who can score 11 touchdowns. That's 11 touchdowns in a season.
Yes.
He was also AFC Offensive Player of the Week in Week 1 of 2016.
I 1,000% believe that.
D'Angelo is taking on... No, I'm sorry. No, he's not. D'Angelo's the 10 seed. He's taking on Ray Seals. Good luck. The last matchup in this bracket, the 8 seed, March 8th, 2005. Steelers sign free agent receiver Cedric Wilson. Left the team in a kind of an infamy, but
yes,
the Steelers had lost Plexico Burress, so they needed to replace him. Wilson just had a career year in San Francisco. Now, he didn't put up the same numbers, with the Niners that he did in Pittsburgh, but in the 2005 playoffs,
yes, you beat me to it. He was a major, major part of the playoffs. Remember, everyone thought the Steelers were just going to run the ball in the playoffs, and they came out throwing. That wasn't just the way they played against the Colts. That's the way they played against the Broncos, too. And Cedric really came alive in the playoffs. I don't know if they win that Super Bowl without him. This was a very good pick, and it also shows that you can't judge a player by what happens just immediately. What happens initially in the first few games or even in the regular season.
3 years, 47 games. So I think that has a good chance to win, but recency bias? The 9 seed is from March 17th, 2023. Steelers signing linebacker Elandon Roberts. Had to completely overhaul that linebacker room in 2023, right? We said goodbye to Miles Jack, Devin Bush, and Robert Spillane. We got Landon Roberts, who wanted to play for Tomlin. He's played in 33 games so far, starting 29.
Yes, and he's someone they're frankly probably going to bring back. I mean, it's we've talked so much about tough players and all this. That Landon Roberts personifies that and brings it from that era to this current one. He is absolutely the old school linebacker reborn in this modern era, the run-stopping inside linebacker.
All right, let's go to the final bracket, the banana split bracket, because the banana split was invented in Latrobe. The 1 seed, April 3rd, 1993, Steelers signed free agent linebacker Kevin Green.
That's Blitzburg. I mean, there's no Blitzburg without him. He brings it. It's still one of the more shocking free agent signings at a time when they had no money and no salary cap, and it absolutely started an entirely new era of defense.
Only 3 seasons. But, a Super Bowl playing team, right? You got to consider that. He came to Pittsburgh because of Dom Capers 3-4.
I totally believe that.
He had offers elsewhere, but Kevin Green is going up against the 16 seed, April 28th, 2023. Steelers trade down in the 3rd round and lead to picks Darnell Washington and Nick Herbig. This is probably the one that's way too early to judge.
Yeah, it is. I mean, those guys have been contributors, and hopefully we do this again 10 years from now, and this is much higher ranked.
The 2 seed at the bottom of the bracket, March 14th, 2006. Steelers signed free agent safety Ryan Clark. Washington had cut Clark and wanted to bring him back on a minimum salary. So he felt disrespected, came to Pittsburgh, went on to play 80 games, starting 78, and made 3 Super Bowl appearances.
Absolutely, and so many of these picks are about when it happened. Chris Hope left for big money for Tennessee after him and Polamalu told each other they'd play together forever, and then Clark came in, and they literally never missed a beat, and perhaps even got better in the secondary.
He certainly, I feel like he's a picture of that 2008 squad. Of anything,
Absolutely, a real leader.
Ryan Clark. Let's stay in the secondary. Ryan Clark is going up against the 15 seed, April 29th, 94, trading for the pick that became safety Lee Flowers. Steelers traded Jeff Graham, the receiver, Jeff Graham, to the Bears for a 5th-round pick, who became Lee Flowers. He went on to start 75 games.
Absolutely, and the leader in the secondary in the pre-Polamalu era. I mean, Lee Flowers was a vicious hitter. He could not run fast, but if you got anywhere near him, he was absolutely going to annihilate you.
Let's go to the top of the bracket for the 3 seed. September 16th, 2019, Steelers trade for Minkah Fitzpatrick. The Steelers gave up a first-round pick, which ended up being 18 overall, a 5th-round pick, a 6th-round pick, and that's it. Steelers got Minkah and a 4th-round pick, which became Kevin Dotson, and a 7th-round pick, which became Trey Norwood. But
absolutely,
Minkah, the headline there.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, and also signing Minkah wasn't just getting a great player. It was a statement of we're not giving up on this season after Ben's injury. The team was able to draw upon that and use that to make that defense truly great for that year.
He's gone on to have 5 Pro Bowl seasons, if you want to include this year's. Minkah is going up against the 14th seed, March 16th, 2024. Steelers signed free agent safety DeShaun Elliott. What is this, the secondary bracket? DeShaun Elliott. This is a recent one. But the meme-inducing press conference at signing, I think, is what put him above the 15 and 16 seeds.
Absolutely. He's been one of the better free agent signings. It's already paid off. I mean, probably the best one they had this past season. What a season he had, and hopefully he can build on it. But this was a real good one.
Steelers for life, I hope. Between him and Roberts, I wouldn't mind some of those
just keep him coming around.
Maybe Queen, maybe Ross. Let's go to the 4 seed, April 17th, 1999, when the Steelers traded down for a pick that became Joey Porter. The Vikings really wanted this tight end, Jim Sasser.
What a name.
So they moved up in the 2nd round. Steelers were happy to oblige. It became Joey Porter. I know it's one of those things we didn't know it was going to be Joey Porter.
But they definitely scouted Porter and wanted him, so that's why I think it's fine going on this way. I mean, again, the leader of the team, as we found out later, he was Cower on the field. He was Cower's most devoted lieutenant, and that certainly comes through, and a real catalyst for the Super Bowl 40 defense.
Cower on the field. He's going up against the 13th seed. It's March 5th, 2003, when the Steelers signed free agent linebacker, but really special teamer, Clint Krewalt.
Yes.
Special teamer on the list here. All right.
But a good one.
He played in 74 games on special teams, 5 years in the black and gold.
And that shows just how indispensable he was at special teams, that they had to keep him around for making the special teams that strong.
Could a special teamer beat the pick for Joey Porter? Maybe. You could argue, well, it was there could be an argument there.
Yeah.
Let's go to the 5 seed, April 6, 1999. The biggest free agent contract in Steelers history as a percentage of the salary cap. Free agent offensive tackle Wayne Gandy. Will Warford had retired. Steelers had spent all offseason courting Gandy. He'd never been to the playoffs. That's why he picked Pittsburgh.
Makes sense to me. I mean, a guy that wanted to come and win, that had a lot of talent. I'm not sure he necessarily lived up to that, but he wasn't bad. I mean, it's whenever you pay somebody that much, you're kind of paying a bit for past production, and I think that was kind of baked into the price. But like, okay, we're going to throw all this money at this hole in the drywall and try to fix it.
Wayne Gandy is going up against the 12 seed. November 1st, 2022, Steelers trade away receiver Chase Claypool. Man, this feels like it could be higher. I guess to be determined, but this could be higher than 12 because everyone knows that the Chase Claypool went for a 2nd-round pick, which became Joey Porter Jr.
Right, and Claypool's out of the league, whereas Porter, I mean, didn't have his best season, but is still definitely ascending. So I mean, this we do this again a few years from now, this could be way higher.
Yeah, this could be dare say a 1 seed if all goes well.
Hopefully.
Let's go to the bottom of the bracket in the 6th seed. March 10th, 2004, Steelers signed free agent defensive lineman Travis Kershke, UCLA's finest. Rodney Bailey did not want to sign a long-term deal in Pittsburgh, so New England matched his offer on the restricted free agent, one of the rare ones where they got the restricted free agent, and
That's how much they wanted him. I mean, a real contributor. I mean, a spot starter, bit of a backup at times, but a guy that really did contribute to some great defenses.
92 games in 6 seasons, 2 Super Bowl rings.
Wow.
He's going up against the 11 seed, August 29th, 2017. The Steelers trade for tight end Vance McDonald. He spent 4 years in Pittsburgh, 53 games, started 47, plus 2 playoff games.
And an all-time highlight, which, of course, is what immediately you thought of as soon as you heard his name. They needed a new tight end, another weapon for Ben, and he really was that. He loved playing for the team. I think his ability kind of ran out on him by the end, but when he can contribute, he contributed.
Let's move on to the 7 seed, August 21st, 1995. Steelers signed free agent kicker Norm Johnson, another kicker on the list. After 13 seasons in Pittsburgh, Gary Anderson had left for Philadelphia. So Steelers came to camp with, see if you know this name, kicker Dean Biasucci. I don't see too many Biasucci jerseys out there.
He went on to have a good career with the Colts, I think.
Oh, really?
I think so, yeah.
Well, that didn't work out. So Norm Johnson happened to be available, even though he made 90% of his kicks in Atlanta. They replaced him with Morton Anderson. So, and the special teams coach in Atlanta was now in Pittsburgh, so Norm Johnson came that way.
Absolutely, and as you're old enough like me, you remember when they would show George Wendt walking into the bar after he'd kick a field goal, and everyone would go, Norm. It was absolutely fantastic. He was a really good kicker, and again, at a time when they needed it, because Gary had left.
63 games over 4 seasons, including an onside kick in Super Bowl 30. Norm Johnson's going up against the 10 seed, March 21st, 2023. The signing of free agent guard Isaac Seumalo. This was, I guess, the Andy Weidel era of influence.
And shocking. I mean, he was maybe the highest priced guard on the market, certainly one of them, and they brought him in. And again, I don't know if he's necessarily lived up to that. He's had some up and down play, but when he's been strong, he's been very strong and an actual experienced leader on this offense, for which there are none.
He was automatically the highest PFF rated guy when he joined the team. He was higher than every.
I totally, especially on offense.
All right, the final match in this bracket, the 8th seed, March 18th, 2008. Steelers signed free agent center Justin Hartwig. He was the highest paid center when he was in Carolina, but injuries caused him to. They drafted a replacement. Hartwig also received an offer from Kansas City, but after meeting with Mike Tomlin, his agent convinced him to sign with Pittsburgh. 32 games later, plus Super Bowl 43.
Absolutely. I mean, that was, always the trivia question of who's the worst center to win a Super Bowl with the Steelers, but he did. He won, and he definitely didn't let them, Ben get overrun over those seasons, so definitely a contributor who deserved that ring.
Will he beat the 9 seed, April 1995? The Steelers signed running back Eric Pee-wee Pegram. Foster had just been traded to Carolina, so Pegram thought he was the missing piece for Pittsburgh. He wanted to come to Pittsburgh because he thought he could take us over the hump. And I guess you could say that he did, because in 1995, he led the team in rushing.
Absolutely. I mean, a real breakaway back, a real speed, change of pace guy at something the Steelers hadn't seen in a long time. He was absolutely something different, and this is as much thunder and lightning as the Steelers have ever had.
And that is the 64 greatest moments in front office history. Make your votes now at BehindTheSteelCurtain.com. We'll keep you updated on the advancements all throughout the month until we reach a winner. That is what we've been talking about. I will see you next week when legal tampering season is here. Will we have a quarterback? Well, you're going to have to tune in to find out. Until next week, keep listening to your coach.
Be their best selves. That's going to be required.
Stay in school.